Hi, welcome to Beyond the Diversity 101 conversation. We don't actually have a slide deck or anything, but we will give our Twitter handles, if not other contact info, either now and at the end. Just a couple housekeeping things. This is not a, oh my God, diversity is amazing, how can I do better panel. I'm assuming you have the baseline understanding that diversity and inclusion is important. We're not going to handhold you and be like, so this is how you find brown people on the internet and queer people, because those are the panels I'm sick of doing, so that's why I pitched this one. We're gonna have conversations about inclusion and about meaningful ways to actually do better, instead of the, oh, it sucks to be brown in music, in gaming, and streaming, because if I have to do another one of those panels, I may throw myself off a cliff. Because a lot of the conversation gets stuck in that rabbit wheel of, well, what about diversity? Why is it important? Why do we have to have brown people in video games? Because we exist? My money's green is yours? I mean, that's a good reason. But before I start ranting, because I can easily do that, I want everyone to introduce themselves. Our friend Raheem may join us if he can ever escape from the coffee shop downstairs. Anyone who's been to MAGFest knows that you may just never get out of the coffee line once you go there. So hopefully he can come and join us as well. So Samus, who I kind of conscripted to this panel today, because I didn't know she was coming.
Hi, everyone. So I am a rapper and a producer who goes by the name Samus, and I'm also a PhD student at Cornell University, and I'm really excited to be here. Tanya's awesome.
I will go last. Misty?
Okay. I'm Misty. I am known as Imperial Girl Online. I am a Twitch partnered broadcaster who focuses a lot on positivity and inclusion and kindness. I also am a part of a role-playing group on Sundays on the Roll20 channel. This is my GM. I am very frustrating, I'm sure, as a player because I don't listen. And that's it, really.
Hi, I'm Trail Freshie. That's pretty much where you can find me on everywhere: Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, same name. Basically, I am a cosplayer / creative streamer who basically does a lot of my stuff for trans representation. It's pretty much my driving goal for a lot of the things I do online.
And I am your moderator. My name is Tanya DePass, also known as Cypher of Tier everywhere online. I stream. I'm on Wizards of the Coast D&D Twitch channel on Rivals Waterdeep on Sundays. Our show is on break right now until the 20th, then we come back for season 3. I GM the Star Trek show that Misty is on, and I adore your doctor. I do a lot of things. I write about diversity. I run my own nonprofit about getting more people in the industry. And one fun thing I get to do is send 25 people to GDC every year to get into the industry and hopefully stay in the industry. So we were chatting a bit before this panel, and also, if anyone here has not seen me moderate, one thing is when we get to Q&A, have a question. I will ask you to go find your question. If you try to go, this is a comment, more of a question, or if this has multiple parts, no. Just no. And also, do not yell out from the audience. This ain't church. We're not trying to have call and response. You're not on the panel, we are. Please respect that. And not in a we're better than you way, but in a you came to the panel to listen. Hopefully you will do that and not yell from the audience, because then I'm just going to give you that mom look, and I'm not even a mom. So without any further ado, I want to start with Trail, because Trail had a lot of really good ways to discuss better trans representation, and not just the acknowledging trans people exist, it's the better ways to do that and be inclusive, because diversity is often a buzzword. So we're gonna shift to saying inclusivity, not so much diversity. Okay. The mic is yours.
Cool. Well, because I could really ramble about this point. There's, as you could tell from the text messages that we go back and forth, I put a lot of thought into this over the years. So one of the things I will start with is a thing that I've constantly seen online, and I think everyone who is a marginalized group or a minority has seen this, where it's you just get included because it's a thing. It's here's your token black person, here's your token trans person, and either one, they're just there and then they disappear, or two, they're there and the entirety of their storyline and their existence is this person's in the story for the trans storyline, and that is it. Then they disappear, or they're a background and they are unimportant, or they're there for just the diverse thing. And that's really kind of really crappy representation. Thank you for acknowledging us, but thank you for pigeonholing us into a single thing. And it's really not hard. The two examples I want to give right off the bat, because to show, a lot of people think that cis white people or whatnot can't do these things, and they can. They can do it really, really well if they do the right things. So as a trans person, the two I will give right off the bat is there's a character in Questionable Content, the webcomic, if everybody knows that one, Claire. She's a trans character. She existed in the comic for a year before it was even revealed. It became part of her character, but she existed outside of it. It was a discussed thing. And this comic is written by a painfully straight white male who, before he did this, reached out online to talk to trans people, to say, here's things I am doing. I had a half-an-hour conversation with him randomly, just being like, here's things I'm thinking, what do you think of this? It's not a hard thing to do to, one, reach out, but again, we're not here to tell you how to reach out to people and how to find them, it's just do it. Make people more than just the stereotype in what they are. The other quick one I'll give before kind of moving on from the point is from the Adventure Zone, there's a character, Loop, who literally, it is mentioned in a preamble that this character is trans, and then it is never brought up again. The person just exists as a normal person, kicks ass, takes name, is lovable, gets into a relationship, never comes up, but that can be a good way to do it too. Like, sometimes the best way to do it is just have the person exist and just acknowledge it. So it doesn't have to be like, none of her storylines revolved around that. And again, done by a painfully straight white male who asked people how to do this. And that was the response they got. So I kind of rambled a bit there, but that's kind of, as a trans person, that's how I sort of feel about the thing. It's you see a lot of it, and a lot of it becomes, this is their character. Their transness is the depth of their character. And you can go so much beyond that.
True, and I think, for those of us on the panel that are cisgender, it falls to us to not just acknowledge, but to do better. And when we see people being mad about a trans character existing or things like that, to speak up. Because a lot of the 101 question I get all the time is, but what can I do? What can I do? This isn't my lane. True, it's not your lane, but you can speak up, because there's no lonelier feeling than not feeling like your friends have your back, not feeling like they realize you exist. You escaped the coffee line, yay!
I love how you're trying to be like, no one sees me.
That was subtle. And I think that one thing that Trial, all the microphones. One thing that Trial touched upon that has really helped me, and she's been very generous with that, is just having discussions with people. Like, don't just, like, there's lots of assumptions. We live on assumptions in this world, but it's challenging them that's important, right? Like, having we had a discussion about lipstick a long time ago, and there was this brand I used, and Triel let me know about the creator, and it was a great discussion, because not only did it went beyond like this person's bad because of this. Oh, okay, but the why, the how, the hearing from the trans community, and letting that influence my decision, other than just, oh, well, this is what I heard, and I'm super woke, so I'm gonna assume that's right. Right? Like, listening to the marginalized groups and including them in discussions and making it so that it's just a group, right? Like, your group of friends doesn't look like, oh, wait, we need the one trans friend. Let's find one, right? So your comic, your game, it shouldn't look like that either. It should be, this is my friend. End of story, right? But also acknowledging and not hiding that, like, you have a person, like, people will say, I don't see color, please see color, please see color.
One of the things you hear a lot, especially when it comes to queer characters and whatnot, is there's more than one queer character. This is so unrealistic. Have you ever been into the world? We congregate. In our groups, we literally have the token straight people. Mm-hmm. So to go beyond that, like that, anyone who says that more than one queer character, They're wrong.
Okay, we're going to talk about our own stories as soon as Raheem gets a chance to introduce himself.
Oh, hi, I'm Raheem Jarbo. I make music under the name Mega Ran, former teacher and streamer, and yeah, that's it. Hi, guys.
So did you have anything to add to that or no?
I did just want to add again in terms of having more than one person from a particular group and why that's so exciting and helpful and important is, even in a show like Insecure, I love that there can be so many different kinds of Black women. And for someone like me, that's not something that I kind of grew up a lot with. And I think it's great because then other folks who are coming into this universe, there's not a prototypical Black woman, right? You get to see that there's conflicts, diversity within these kind of issues that emerge differently for different folks. And so again, part of the power of not kind of focusing on this one narrative is then nobody becomes a representative. There can't be a representative when there's more than one person there.
Yeah, because shockingly, and this should not be news to anyone in this room, we're not a monolith. Everyone has intersectional identities. Quick show of hands, who does not know what intersectional means?
It's okay.
Oh, it's okay, you can admit it. We're not going to yell at you. I know we have 2 teachers on stage. We're not going to yell at you. Okay, if you don't want to admit... What?
You got a good group.
Yes, but if you don't want to admit
I saw one hand. I saw a little shy hand. So if you want to explain that would be cool.
I'll quickly explain that. Intersectional means the ways in which your various identities intersect. So I am cisgender female, I am Black, I'm bisexual, I have mental health issues. All of those things combine to make me who I am. There is no one thing that I am that I'm going to present to the world or that I get to choose to present to the world. I cannot undo or pretend to be anything than Black when I go outside because, light skin aside, this hair and this nose ain't fooling nobody. It's true. I don't get a choice in how the world sees me, but there's more to me than just being a Black chick or being short or being fat or what have you. And so all those complexities make up who I am, and that is an intersectional identity. I wanted to talk about something Misty brought up in our conversation prior to the panel, which was talking about narrative and narratives about who we are as people, because a lot of ways in which games fail us, and games fail and some other genres fail, is the narrative of what our identities are.
Oh, jeez. I have to remember.
It was like an hour ago.
I know! It's been a long day already. Oh my gosh, hold on. I'm just reading it. No, bad representation. No. I'm just trying to remember where my thought process was going with that. Thinking that. We're talking about this, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, we were joking the other day when we were playing Star Trek, right? About our GM said something about token, and Sharif went off, and he's like, I don't want to be the front page. I don't want to be the front picture on our. On the brochure, right? That's a lot.
Because he's the only Andorian.
Right. But he's Andorian. A lot of times with inclusion, and it'll be like, oh, well, we have this one Black person in our group, so we're gonna put him right out front and be like, hey, no, look, see, we're super diverse. We even led with the Black guy. No, it should be, our entire cast, is made up of people of color, and it's fantastic because you don't turn on the TV and look at a show and be like, oh, look, that's the Black show. No, that's a show, right? It shouldn't be like that. And when you look at including people, I'm telling you, I'm having a hard time today with my train of thought. You have to make sure that when you're making these decisions and moving forward, how are we going to build this game? It's not just you and your group of friends. We want to make sure that this is a group that represents life. And to do that, you need people making decisions about what you're doing or giving input about what you're doing from what the world looks like. So if it's just you and your 4 friends making a game, that's okay, but you need input from other groups, or else it's just going to look like you and your 4 friends. And that's not what life really looks like. And if you want to have a dynamic, amazing, and I'm just using games as an example, experience, you need to include people from all walks of life, right? Guys, gals, your non-binary pals, everyone. Because if not, it's just going to look like for me, like four ladies doing something with sewing. Like, it's going to be boring.
Do either of you have thoughts, especially in the music scene? Because I went to a panel they were both on this morning, and I was really surprised to see it was mostly people of color. I was like, what world
So was
I
I.
in?
I did a panel yesterday about video games and hip hop and how they intersected at nerdcore. And when I first heard of the term nerdcore, it was literally like 4 white guys, and that was the face of like nerdy hip hop music, you know. And I was like, wow, like that doesn't feel very inclusive, and that didn't necessarily make me want to jump and be a part of it. But at the same time, I was like, well, maybe if I can kind of inject a little bit of, you know, color, for lack of a better word, into that, it could encourage other people of color and other folks to eventually become a part of it. And that panel was kind of like the realization of that. So that was cool to see. But I've experienced something like that this year. I was a part of a podcast convention, and I think we were the only podcast run by people of color there. And there was a person online who complained about the lack of diversity at the convention, and the convention director used us as an example of that diversity. And that didn't really help their argument, being like, well, look, we got Mega Ran there. He's black. He didn't say that, but, you know. And so the question, I guess,
Maybe not with words.
would be for you. Yeah, not with words, but look at these guys, you know. So his response to that was something that I would love to talk to you about, is that the person that was accusing them of that kind of looked at me and said, well, don't bring up the token and use that to be the full of the, you know, the whole thing. So in that case, I kind of got offended, like, wait, I'm the token? Like, so I don't know if any of you have ever been in that situation or can speak to it.
God, yes.
As becoming the token, or the, you know, the minority, or the other in the group, is that something that in that case you should step away from and be like, no, I'm not going to be your only one, you better bring in more? Or do you jump into that and then hope that that will lead to maybe more people who look like you applying and becoming a part of it? I don't know, like, what's the answer to that?
I hate to use the term lean in.
Don't.
I know, I just did, sorry. But I would say that that's the way I try to confront things like that. Like, hey, maybe instead of saying, oh, well, there's some people over there that say, wait a minute, why are you saying that? What led you to believe that? I mean, it's kind of obvious in this situation, but like, how can I do better? Like, maybe that's the question. Instead of looking at you and being like, hey, just say, you know what? There's truth in that. How can I do better? I don't know, because clearly I made this mistake. Are you available to help me? And that's key. Don't be like, you're black, can you help me with this? Right? Because time is valuable, and as are emotions. It's not, like, I try very hard if I have a trans issue. I'm not like, hey, can we talk for like 5 hours about that? No, because time is valuable and emotions are valuable. And I'm using Trail as an example because she's right here, but I would call you anyway, but but really, like, you need to make sure people are emotionally available, and available, like, time is valuable. Like, when people throw down their PayPal links, it's not a joke, right? Like, I'm happy to help you, but, you know, $24.99 a minute.
That's all?
That's cheap. I think it's different too. Like in the music industry, and whatnot, it's you're there, your representation. Yeah. A lot of the stuff I do is online with, like, you know, my cosplay and my streaming and whatnot. And Missy will tell you, before I even started streaming, I made it very, like, I did not hide I know a lot of trans people hide the fact that they are online because they know what it can open up. Yeah. I made it very well known that I was. It wasn't like I came out there and just, like, waved the flag. It was just I didn't hide the fact, because my personal belief is the way I get that message is just like is to be there to show other trans people that, look, you can be here, you can exist in this world. People will accept you. You can do this, and I think that's what, like, you even just made me think about it. It's like, wow, the podcasting world is really white. Like I took this moment right now just to think. It's like, do I know how many people of color? I'm literally struggling to think of more than like 2. Like, not on this panel.
Oh.
Like, I
Every person of color I know has a podcast, so.
but that shows you
Just
something
saying.
too. Is
Everybody up here.
I can think of two.
but I mean, that's sort of the point, though. Is
So,
again,
yeah.
as a non-person of color, that it's a thing. So like having it out there and putting yourself out there, I think, is that real first step to making more people realize you can do this, do this, and that's what keeps you from being the token, by showing there's a lot of us doing this.
Yeah.
You just gotta look.
Right. And to fight for promotion too, because a lot of times it's like, oh, they're out there. Where?
Yeah. Over there.
Look at the carousel. Oh, I'm gonna get real risky right here. Look at the carousel on the front page of Twitch anytime.
Besides
Which
now.
we might now be on. So hi. Sorry about that. But seriously, it is, when I'm on it, it's usually Ninja, 4 other white dudes, and me. That's not the best.
And I think kind of going along with Raheem and some of the challenges that we face is one of the things that folks will often say to me is like, oh, your music is really relatable. And I think that term is pretty loaded. So for example, I have a song where I talk about hair, or one of the lyrics is talking about hair. And I can't tell you how many folks have come up to me, non-black folks, and have told me, you know I'm not black, but I can totally relate to that because XYZ happens to me. Or
You mean the line that literally says, y'all must not know any blacks?
yes,
Okay, just checking.
that line specifically.
You must not know any blacks.
Basically, it's talking about how a lot of folks will engage with black people around their hair and just not understand anything. And so that's really frustrating because, again, with going back to this question of not wanting to be a token, I don't want to be like an explainer or like someone who is. I want to open up the world of hip hop and I want to open up the things that I'm going through, but I want people to approach it from a less shallow perspective where it's like I can only engage with this if it's relatable to me. Like, I think pushing for that next level is to engage with something that may not relate to anything that you're thinking about or dealing with at all, and that's okay. Like the way that often movies are cast or framed as like a black film, and then it's shocking if somebody else goes to it. Well, no, I mean, I go to white films all the time, right? Like, but it's sort of shaped in a different way. So I think that's something that I struggle with as an artist, is being told or having people feel like, oh, this is really relatable because I once dealt with a challenge too. And, and like wanting to be like, again, going back to kind of intersectionality, right? That it's about sort of these different identity points that we have, and also our relation to kind of the privilege or lack of privilege that comes with those identity points. And so not conflating the fact of having red hair and dealing with whatever to what I'm obviously speaking from many experiences that are like make me very stabby. But yeah, so that I think is a huge challenge that we face over here in terms of thinking about music and diversity and being in spaces where you might be the only black person. Those are conversations that folks are gonna have with you.
It's okay if it's not relatable.
Right.
That doesn't
Exactly.
mean you can't learn about it. Like
it doesn't have to be.
Right. Oh, I had someone once say, "Oh, well, I know what it's like to be black. I was poor." It's like,
Wow.
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh no, we need to discuss this further."
And
No,
here's the
you
thing
need
too,
to-
though. Is
Oh, God.
At the same time, let's also not invalidate the fact that that
also
is a
let's
problem,
not get
but it's
too
not the same
derailed.
problem.
Correct,
Like,
I'm like, right.
you had a bad experience. My life is full of non-privileged things, but I still can never experience the same things that you do, in the same way that you can never experience the same ones that I have. It doesn't invalidate it, but no, I cannot connect with you on that level.
Right.
All right, so that's a good segue to something I wanted to bring up after I share one thing. I saw on a Facebook post of someone else that this person's like, as someone who's 2.47% black, I am deeply offended. And I was just like, Andraste, take the wheel before I cuss this woman out. It is not my post. It is, and like, I only know this dude through Facebook. If he gets rid of me, it's no loss. But I'm like, what self-respecting black person can I name that would let a white person say some shit like that on their Facebook and still have them there? So like, oh, he knows me, it's a joke. And I was like, you and your jokey ass can go elsewhere, because no. Like, who even says that? Because for me, I just went, so we're back on the one drop rule, are we? it would be a whole tangent, but I did have someone try to conflate not having enough redheaded folks in games to a point I was making about black folks in video games and Mafia 3, and I was like, oh, I have not had enough to drink to have this conversation.
Oh, sweet summer child.
It was, well, and this is terrible, but their response was, well, I'm on the spectrum, and that's not what I meant, and I was like, that's not an excuse. But then my white friends came and collected them. I was like, I can't. I just cannot, because I will say some shit that will get me in trouble based on how I feel right now. But, you know, people do stuff like that. But so I wanted to kind of segue into tangible things, tangible takeaways. You know, if you're taking notes, take notes, tweet, do whatever you're doing. If you want to yell at me later, go ahead. I'll just block you on Twitter. My block list is 6 digits long. Keep trying me. But tangible things where you can take this back, you can think about it as something you want to do as your toolkit. Unfortunately, the safety pin box is no longer around. It was something started by Leslie Mack, and I feel bad, I can't remember the other woman's name. But there were 2 black women who were like, okay, allies, you keep talking a good game. We're going to put a box together for you so you can go learn and stop asking emotional labor of us. And by the way, pay us for it. And it didn't last long, mostly because people like, how dare black women ask for money for their compensation? So these are tools you can put in your toolkit, take notes in your phone, do whatever you're doing. When you know that you're going, so quick show of hands, does anyone here put together conferences? Okay, just one person, just a couple people. So when you are looking at your guest list or people you want to have on panels, put something in your panel submission of, have you thought about the makeup of your panel? Are you going to sit here and submit another panel of all white dudes talking about the same shit they get to come to your convention or conference for every year and come for free? Or are you going to have new, fresh voices that may not all be white dudes? Because there's so many other things I can talk about beside diversity that I do not get to talk about because people go, well, you're the diversity lady. You're always mad about being brown on the internet. This is what you can come talk about. Now, granted, I'll take your money if you want to pay my way and pay me a speaker fee, but there are other things to talk about. Things like Misty and I stream, Raheem streams, Trail streams. So if you're having a panel about streaming, don't have the same bearded white dudes that want to sit there that make, you know, money hand over fist talk about, oh, it's so hard to stream. Because I will laugh and leave that room because it's not hard for them. And conversely, when you want to talk about diversity issues, don't always just put your brown folks on those panels. So many conventions and conferences, if there is a diversity track, that's the only place you'll see brown faces at that event. And it's really tiresome because there's so much more we have to offer. I'm an editor. I've written for a Hugo Award-winning magazine. I have a UX degree. There's so much more I can talk about. Misty is a seamstress. Trill does amazing cosplay and other things. There's other things besides identity. You know, Samus and Megaran are both amazing artists and not just nerdcore hip-hop, not just rappers. You know, there's so much more to talk about. You know, and that's what I can speak to onto the conference side because I do a lot of convention work. I work for GamerX. I work for a lot of other conferences where I'm making people think about who is it on stage with you? Who are you bringing to the table to talk about things beside being brown and how much it sucks in field of choice? So Triel, what is a tangible thing that you can give someone as a tool to do better and to go beyond that 101, oh my God, I accept trans people exist?
This is, and I kind of harked on this a little bit earlier, is as I said, trans people are just normal people. Right. A lot of times it always goes back to that becomes their identity. When you do include us, that becomes the identity. And it is the sole focus. I mean, I'll go to, you know, a certain Netflix show that I won't go into because I have so many issues with it that I think we all know which one I'm talking about. Let's talk about it later. Okay. But basically, like, you know, also, if you are doing like a live action thing, I mean, this is more of like production, but like when they use non-trans people for trans roles, like I have horrible curse words for that I will not go into. But the biggest thing I'd say is honestly, if you also think that you don't, like, go into anything, include trans people, we exist, don't make it a thing, make them normal people, and don't make their identity about dealing with the fact that they are trans or dealing with the things that come from it. You can introduce a character and then they can just exist. literally sometimes all we need and all we want is the drop the fact that they are. Even if it's a subtle hint, just put it out there and then just have the person exist. That means so much. Like the one I'll go back to again is the Adventure Zone, because that's the one. They literally say it once in one sentence, is quickly discussed, mentioned, pronouns are mentioned, and then it's dropped. I cosplay from that series a lot. That community is one of the most accepting communities for the thing ever, and I give a lot of attribution to that because the person is just treated like normal. So I go to a con and everyone just treats, they're all cool, everyone is normal. It is the best way to do it. You don't need to do anything special. And if you are going to do something about the storyline about it, talk to an actual trans person. Someone would make sure you're doing it right.
And pay them.
And yes, and
Misty, in terms of when we see stories about either being black or female or over 40 or anything like that, what are your thoughts? Because I'm sure we've all, like the three of us, have seen games that if there is a black woman in it, she either doesn't live long, she's like the gangster's girlfriend, she's a hoe or whatever, or she's a villain. So if you could give a tangible tool tip to someone either making games, music, or that wants to stream, because we know a lot of black women are like, nah, fuck that. I'm not putting myself out there like that. So what is a tool you would give people, Misty?
Oh, jeez, that's a hard one.
We can come back to you.
It's hard. No, I mean, I can ramble about it, but I can get there. I would say it's difficult to be in a space where you don't look like anyone else and you don't feel like anyone else. And you can still succeed in that space. And I think that confidence is not something, it's not a tool in a lot of people's toolboxes that they can just take out and be like, oh, here's my confidence, let me put it on today. But sometimes, and I say this and it doesn't work for everyone, but sometimes you have to fake it till you make it. And I hate that term, but I use it regardless because I believe it works. And I don't mean like pretend to be happy about people being terrible to you. I mean, realize that in the future you're gonna realize you're awesome, right? Like I wanna stream, let's use an example, I wanna stream, and today I'm new, but in a year from now I'm gonna be amazing. And put on the mantle that you're earning now, right? Why let it wait for a year? Try it on and use it and move forward with it, because you have many ways that you are amazing. And if you can own it now, you're gonna grow into it. And I think that confidence is learned. And I don't think a lot of people realize that. Some people are born with it, right? But for a lot of us, it's learned. And some people,
don't look at me for that one. I grew into it.
I had to grow into it as well. And I'm still not there yet. Work in progress. But I can pretend, because it helps me realize that, okay, that was good. I feel okay. Maybe maybe that's who I can be. And it gives you the confidence to move forward. And when you can own the fact that you belong in a space, then it's your space and you've taken it. And the more people of color, the more trans folk, the more marginalized groups that put themselves out there and say, hey, I'm here and I'm gonna do my thing, and you don't have to like it, but I'm gonna do it because this is what makes me happy. I guarantee you will find other people who will say, you know what? I didn't think I could do this. And then you've just made a difference in someone else's life as well as your own. And I think that is, I mean, one step at a time. Sometimes you just need to bring one person over to your side, and then you're both there, and then you both bring more people. And sometimes it's just that small, and it makes a huge difference in the long run.
Yeah, I want to ask Nago and Raheem in terms of music, because especially nerdcore is still a pretty white space, despite what we've seen this morning.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we definitely keep that in mind. I know in recent, it's like straight white space pretty much for the most part. But I think the best way to increase awareness of people, I think, is to, along the lines of what you were saying, I think works with music, is to enlist those people, collaborate with those people, and raise those people up. I think a lot of those guys have done a great job in the past year or so of including and collaborating with a lot of folks who don't look like them, whether Lex, the lexicon artist we were just speaking of, amazing woman MC who's just like has made amazing strides this year, and a lot of those guys have been working on music that reflects, I think, the times, and I think that's what we do as musicians, and I think that's our number one goal, is to reflect the times. So a lot of those folks, myself included, have, I think, changing and diverting your, lyrical content to attempt to, to school people. I think that's the main goal when you're on a microphone. So I think collaboration is a huge thing, and also shining a light, the cosign we call it, on people of color or trans people or anyone else that deserves it. And I think, and most importantly, like you said, is paying them, putting them in positions to earn, paying jobs, through their art. And I think that we've been doing a lot better with that, but there's definitely a ways to go with that. And I think that so many people who have that platform, I think it's their responsibility to say, hey, like, you need to listen to that person. And, much like when I heard Samus, I said, people need to hear this, So I think that's extremely important. It's a small thing but I think rap music particularly is so ego-driven, where we're like, we want it all. Like, if I tell them to go listen to someone else, they're not going to listen to me anymore, But I think it's so important to share that spotlight while we have it, and get those people paid.
Yeah, I think, again, also kind of bringing together all the things that we've talked about as far as like collaboration has been really important for me, and being able to, or kind of reaching beyond my own network or my own space. So I perform in a lot of like multi-genre shows, like a lot of punk shows, a lot of like noise and other stuff. And that's because that's where I found a lot of artists who were brown and queer and trans and other folks who were interested, who had the same politics. So to me, it was like less about the music specifically, which I think when I first started, it was like, okay, we got to do hip hop shows, right? So where are the other rappers at? But now, sort of, in order to find my people, it's like, okay, well, it's more about a political sensibility, about a way of creating the space, about being intentional, about when I go on tour, every artist that opens for me has to kind of ascribe to these ideals and be a part of this belief system, and then that creates the space. So then anybody who comes to see me is going to see that that's what I'm about, and they're going to kind of learn from there. So again, I think going back to this idea of the confidence, that when you kind of step out on a limb and you try to create that space, even if it's a small space at first, it grows. Like, more and more people will come to that space, and you can, it's difficult, but you can kind of shape how you want that space to be. You can set the boundaries for who gets to enter and who is not a part of it. Like, even how Tanya was setting the ground rules from jump, right? Like, this is the kind of space that this is going to be. This will be tolerated, this won't. You can do that at your shows too. You can do that as an artist, as the person who has the mic. You can say, no, that behavior, that person has to leave. This person's not allowed at my shows. Like, those kinds of, I think, setting up those boundaries is so, so, so important for building that kind of space and making it a norm, like a part of how other people see that they can run their shows as well.
Thank you. Okay, a couple things I'm going to give you as a tip, and then we'll open up to Q&A. And again, have a question. And if it's a basic question, if it's a one-on-one, where can I find brown people on the internet? I'm going to tell you, go find Google and or maybe Andraste. So one thing that I see a lot is white people asking other white people about cultures that neither one of them belong to. Stop that. No, I'm dead serious. One thing that I saw, and this is well before I actually met him, I saw someone in the tabletop community asking Matt Mercer about writing, I think, indigenous cultures. Love Matt. He's still a white dude. And this white dude asking him. So I was like, excuse me, why are you doing this? Because lovely man, but he's not indigenous unless there's something I don't know. So that is something that I see a lot, where it's like, well, I'm afraid to ask, and people are going to yell at me on the internet. You know what's going to be worse for you on the internet? If you do this and do it wrong and don't even reach out, because a lot of people are afraid to even try. You can try. You're going to mess up. I'm going to tell you that right now. You're going to mess up, and it will not kill you. It will make you learn, hopefully make you stronger, but it is not the end of the world if you do something and you do your diligence and it's still not to everyone's specifications. Because 4 black folks on this panel, we could all see a black character and not get the same thing out of it. And like Detroit Become Human. Misty played it. I'm not a fan. I wasn't trying to tell on you, but that's a whole other panel. But but again, like we have similar backgrounds, we're close in age, and we have a lot of the same tastes when it comes to things. But that is a place where we're like, nope, never the twain shall meet.
And I see why you didn't like it, but I see why you didn't enjoy it and why you found it problematic. It didn't, and that's again exactly what you're talking about. What impacts you in a strong way might not impact me in that same strong way, or it might be something that I wish to experience and you have no desire to, and that's both okay.
And that's the other part of it, is that you can do all of this. You can follow these steps. You can do everything, pay diversity consultants. You may still get someone who's real mad at you at the end of the day and go, well, that's not my experience. Because we talked about this the other day, some of us, that I could see a black character, I could see, or maybe like what I get out of Samus's music and Mega Ran's music, another black person, that may not hit any notes for them. Like the first time I saw Samus perform 1080p, which is about going to therapy, I started bawling in public. I am not a crier, but it was just like, but it just hit me in such a way. But somebody else may hear that song and it doesn't resonate because maybe therapy is not something that they've thought about or experienced or have gone to yet or had that moment. Maybe they don't need therapy. Lucky them.
They didn't have a childhood.
But realize that, when you go out and ask for a consultant, and if you are looking for a consultant, there's not a lot of databases for it, but you can at least ask on Twitter. Don't be that person that slides in the DMs and go, so I wrote a black character. Can you read it and tell me if it's terrible? Because one, I'm going to tell you, probably it is. Two, here's what I charge per hour. And three, doing that on the sly after you've already committed the time and energy to a project, that means you're not going to hear that feedback. The other part of it is when you do go out and say, hey, Samus, I want to write a character. They're from your same country of origin, or I want to write someone who's a rapper and I know nothing about rapping. And it's like, but here's this 20-page manuscript I already wrote that I've already messed up. I have to be receptive to that feedback. So the last toolkit before we open it to questions is start at the beginning. If you have that ability, no matter what project you're on, be it a book, music, game, streaming, ask people from the beginning. And if someone says, that term bothers me, I don't like being described that way, or fill in the blank of whatever it is that person comes back to you with, accept it and realize that you can take all this feedback, you can do what you're supposed to do. There's still going to be people who don't like what you have accomplished. And that's just part of growth as an artist. Because I know I'm not everyone's cup of tea. A lot of people hate me because I get very annoyed with people very easily. But it is what it is, and that's how I have to conduct my business. And whether they like it or not, that's what I have to do to be safe. And then Misty and everyone else has very different styles of moderation, of existing on the internet, etc., and in person. So, that is not the clock. We have 16 minutes. Do we have a mic for questions? All right, we do have a mic for questions.
Can I just pop in one more thing that I missed?
Sure,
and then too. It's a 30-second thing.
Yes, but while you're talking, people can line up.
Better way to represent trans people: tell good stories. Like, lots of trans stories are, here's how hard their life is. Here's all the things they go through. Why don't you do a story about us succeeding, us having a good life? I'll tell you this: I have a really good life. I'm very happy in my day-to-day life. You could try to write the sad stories and the hard stories as better representation, but you know what? Happy stories are good representation too.
Like, everyone wants to talk about
the struggles,
I came out and this and that, but like, what about like the day you got married, right? Like, what about the happy day? Like, come on.
Yes, good stories exist too.
Exactly.
Yes. Hi.
Hi. So my question is based on people group together when they're similar, like there's different fandoms and there's
Okay, I'm going to stop you and ask for the question.
The question is, how do you overlap between those groups and create more inclusion if those groups are kind of separating by themselves?
Do you mean in terms of everyday activity and creating art? Or do you mean like within your friend
Like
groups?
interpersonal relationships or
Storytelling.
I'm just trying to get more experience talking to other people, because sometimes your lifestyle and the way you live, it limits who you interact with, and if you want to.
So you mean meeting other people?
That's fair. No, and I understand that, right? Like you travel in one group of people, and then you don't want to go up to someone and be like, "Hey, you're black. Can we be friends? Because I don't have any black friends." Is that kind of what you're saying, right? So conventions like this are great for that, right? Sorry, I'm loud naturally, so I don't even think about it. To me, places like this are great. I wouldn't go into it with I want to. It's great to want to diversify your friends group. That's an absolute, you want your friends group to look like the world, right? Places like this are great. Don't be afraid to talk to someone. I know we have a lot of preconceived notions in terms of that person might not like what I like, that person that. Go up to anyone, hey, I'm a Slytherin. I see you're in a Ravenclaw outfit. It's really great. What's your name? If you want to increase your group, approach people who seem to be interested in the same things you are, regardless of who they are, and accept them for who they are, and include them, and be with them. Because I know people who just don't do that. They'll say, "Oh, well, that person looks more like me. I'm just going to talk to them instead." So just look at it from the type of people you want to be friends with, right? That's what I would say.
Yeah, I would agree with that as far as the even what I was saying before with building shows around having the same politics versus the same genre creates different kinds of shows, right? So it's now I have a whole bunch of friends who make punk music. I have a whole bunch of friends who do, you know what I mean? But we're not all hip hop artists. And so when I think, like she was saying, kind of come together from something beyond sort of oh, you look similar to me. I think it's relatively easy. You can figure out okay, yeah, we like the same stuff. And then that friend group kind of grows from there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, panel, for coming out. My name is Brandon. I'm getting my MBA full-time at University of Maryland. And my question is, how do you be your authentic self while also fitting in, not just in a business world, but in music and in pop culture, gaming, etc.?
You mean as in, what do you mean authentic self?
I'm a black man, and that
No, really?
And there's a lot of things that come with that of who I am. And for example, in business, going into a company culture where I am the token black guy, I can be myself, but I also have to toe the line, because otherwise I'll be ostracized. So what are your thoughts?
Having been the only black person in many situations, I would always try to keep a firm separation between work and my personal life, because when you're usually the only black person in an office, people want to get real invested in what you're doing, or they see something on the news, they want to have a talk with you. "Oh, I saw this on the news, what do you think?" And I'm like, "I don't know." For instance, unfortunately, when a lot of us were getting killed by the police, that was a conversation that came up, and there was one other black person in the office, but she was half my age. She was not at a point to have these conversations. And we had a young woman who had a lot of cops in her family, could not hear this conversation, and got very upset because she internalized and personalized it versus me saying, that could be me. That could be someone I love. That could be a relative or a friend. So somewhat you have to decide, what is the line for you? Be yourself, but don't let everybody be in your business at work, because that has burned me so bad. And granted, I say that from a place of bitterness, because I will never work in higher ed again. But at some point you have to go, is this worth it? Because what your field is versus finding other people like you, because when you finally do have other black people in the office, you will cling to them like a barnacle. Or you will be like, don't listen to these white folks, you'll get in trouble. Either way, just be yourself, but have a line, have a boundary. That's the word I was looking for. Have a boundary, because with your friends, you can be yourself. But at work, you got to code switch. You got to wear the mask. And unfortunately, that's just the truth of being black in corporate America. Be authentic once you leave the walls of that building.
And I would say it's the same thing as being any kind of marginalized group in corporate America, right? Like, and I don't know if your question is specifically about corporate America, but apparently it is now. But the I mean, I was not only like the person of color, I was I have tattoos and crazy hair color, and I slowly because when I got the job, I wanted to be, you got to toe the line, and I slowly decided what parts I was going to reintroduce and where, right? We all have work personas, right? You can grow it, and that goes anywhere, but you gotta make sure that you're doing it in a way that's going to keep you safe.
Unfortunately, too, sometimes just you do have to hide some things. I mean, quite literally at work, I am completely male presenting, and it is the only place I hide my identity, because literally they can fire me for it. Someone doesn't like it, they can just let me go in that spot, and it's completely legal. So it's a shitty reality of the situation answer, but yeah, sometimes you do just have to hide that shit. But it also just means that when I'm not in those situations, I embrace it. And that helps. Sometimes when you have to suppress it, sometimes you just go whole hog into it, embrace it when you can.
And I would also add that that's kind of the power of the internet, or kind of going to conferences or being in spaces like this. So as I mentioned, I'm getting my PhD, and being in higher ed, like the higher up you go, the less you find, at least as a black woman, it's like we're like reaching for each other, like, oh my God, So, but I've gone to like conferences, and I found other folks through that. And so if the issue is like professional development or something like that, like wanting to have folks who are in your same, have your same trajectory, that's been really helpful, to just meet a couple of other folks at other institutions. They might not even be in the same field, but they can help me have some of the conversations that I'm trying to have. So like, yeah, going to a lot of conferences has been nice, and reaching out across the internet, the interwebs, doing research, and just emailing folks, other folks who, other black women academics, has been really, really nice. They generally are receptive because they're also thinking about these things as well.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Okay, one thing I will add is, and this is going to sound terrible, but remember that not all skin folk are kinfolk. Just because there's other black folks, look, y'all can get mad if you want.
Is the truth?
True.
Look,
Yeah. Yeah.
And also don't have that Highlander mentality when there do get to be other black folks in your office. No, I'm serious, because I have had to have that. Look, 2 black people can exist on this campus without having to have a sword battle. It's okay.
I mean, it'd be cool if you did, but not for that reason.
I mean, I would win. But
I wouldn't mess with you.
Yes. Yeah, but I have cards. Let's chat after quickly, because I have a meeting after this.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. Thank you, panelists, for the presentation so far. I was just wondering, I've always seen diversity inclusion as sort of a continually evolving process where there is no end goal, and I was curious what the opinions of the panelists are on that statement. Do you also agree? Do you agree that diversity and inclusion are continually evolving? There's always you're going to keep moving the goalposts further and further, or is there an end goal already in place that we've got to get to?
I guess in my opinion, the end goal is a never-ending, thing. It's understanding each other. We all want to understand each other, and as people continue to become more complex, it just becomes harder and harder. So I think it is constantly reaching towards it, and you'll see that, from if panels and things begin to change shape, there's different types of people in panels. There's different type of people you see, hopefully, in music and in gaming, and then characters. So yes, it will continue to evolve. Hopefully, I think that to me, the goal is a goal that will forever be ahead. It's the carrot dangling, because we have to constantly chase it, in my opinion, to feel like we're getting where we need to get, which is understanding, in my opinion.
Did you want all of us to answer?
Anyone else?
I mean, I would just say, Pierce, the exact same things. That summed it up beautifully.
Right.
I was like,
Absolutely.
Thank you. Good question.
I can't spell.
Do you recognize any positive aspects from cultural appropriation?
No.
Or can I ask?
Could you name one?
Well, if you would allow me, I could exemplify. Let's use Day of the Dead. Up until like 3 years ago, it was almost unheard of in the United States. But this last year and even before 2017, people started painting their faces like, like that. But in Mexico, that's Day of the Dead. It's actually a religious thing. And once it got here, it just became blended with Halloween and, just for fun. And as a Mexican, and I'm not saying that I'm just from Mexican heritage, I actually come from Mexico. I lived there for 20 years. I don't particularly feel offended by it. On the contrary, I actually like it because that way it gives it makes Mexico be seen in other light, or a better light than just drugs or whatever, if you know what I mean.
So I can see that, right? Like I don't know that that's, so there's a difference between the appropriation part, I think, and the cultural part, right? Introducing that tradition and awareness of more of the beauty of Mexico is amazing. But people, like Walmart making $5 out of a crap load of Day of the Dead merchandise, that's not cool, right? So when I look at the appropriation part of it, that's not cool. But spreading the knowledge of the culture, that's the cool part, right? So if we could separate those, where it was more of a, here, we're introducing our culture to you, here's some awesome things that, one of many awesome things that comes from my country, I think that would be, that is a positive part of it. But I think overall the taking of a culture's awesome shit to make money is terrible, right? That's my personal view, but I see how you can, is it worth it, right? For you, it's worth it, because even though some people are making some bank off of it, it's largely positive. I think it's almost like, paying Peter to, robbing Peter to pay Paul there, right? So it's again, the whole Detroit Become Human thing. I found it okay. Tanya hated it, right? And it's another, someone else from Mexico might think it's terrible, but your opinion's still valid because it's yours, and it doesn't mean that it's wrong. And that's my viewpoint, right? Because I know some people are like, well, that's wrong. Oh, it's not, right? Your opinion's valid, and I can see why you'd say that, for sure. Anyone else?
I think maybe Raheem can also speak to this. One of the challenges that we face in, I would say, nerd rap, is a lot of rappers come into the space with no sort of respect or understanding of the art form, and think that because they're made rhyme Darth Vader with something, that they're somehow, they're now participating in this culture that has a rich history outside of that, history that's tied to that already existed, as far as people talking about these things, video games, comic books, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think the frustration there is that, people are marketing themselves as arbiters of this art form. And it's true that people might come to them and listen to them and now say, okay, now I'm going to listen to more hip hop. Now I'm going to go find other stuff. But more often than not, what you find is this distinction of well, this is like a special form of hip hop that's smarter or more whatever word they want to use to describe it. And so that kind of cross-pollination is not happening. And I think that that's what you're speaking to, that when the cultural kind of context is extracted from the object or extracted from the experience, then it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything if people are participating in this thing, but they don't know that it has anything to do with Mexico, right? They don't know any of the kind of ties or relationships to it. It's just a neat thing that they saw. Then it's not even fulfilling the purpose that you kind of have for it, as speaking to this kind of doing this diplomacy work of bringing forth this culture, right? So I think that the issue is when there's not kind of a cultural context that comes with the object or whatever's moving between different cultural groups, and that happens so frequently when money is involved or when, so yeah, it's complicated. Thanks for the question.
All right, we're gonna quickly get your question, that'll be time, and then if you wanna hang out for a minute, we can try to get your question.
Okay, so as an invisibly disabled and ace woman, those are things that are still not even token or 101 recognized professionally or personally often. Like I work in diversity workshops and conferences, and even in those groups, I have to be like, hey, don't forget about disabled people when you're talking about diversity. Do any of you have experience with how to do that without kind of sounding like an asshole and at the same time cope with dealing with people doing that who are, you know, otherwise so very aware? I know that's loaded.
No, I was going to say something probably different. For me, like, I listen to other people and I share what they have to say because neither of those are my wheelhouses. And I try to be very careful of interjecting myself in those conversations because while I may not be fully abled, I'm not in a wheelchair, I don't need an assistive device. You know, I still, like, I need glasses or contacts, but I'm not, you know, functionally blind or anything. So I'm just very careful to do that. But when I do see people, and if I check with my friends, like, do you have enough energy for this? Do you want me to say or do anything? If they say no, then I go be quiet. Or I just retweet my friends that are talking about this with much more authority than I have.
Amplifying people's voices is the best way I've found, because I know that 2 years ago like arrow and ace were not words to me, right? And now in talking to people, I more understand it, and I know that I don't have a full understanding of it because it's not something that I identify with, but including it in diversity discussions is super important because people need to understand that just like it's not like people of color, disabled, LGBTQ, oh, we're done, right? There's so many more definitions, going back to what Tanya said in the beginning when you talk about intersectional, like, everybody's so unique and there's so many things that we need to discuss from a diversity standpoint. It's not just 2 or 3 items. It's not just skin color or sexual orientation or trans issue. It's not, there's a wide variety of issues that people need to learn about that are beyond, that should be beyond 101 that might not even be there yet because they're not included. So I think I would say, when you said the first thing that I thought, sometimes you got to be an asshole.
So basically, shut up anxiety. If they are the people that they say they are, they're not going to be offended that you brought that up.
Yes.
Okay. That's what I kind of worry about. I was like, I think that, but, you know, anxiety.
All right, well, actually, we're over time now. We're over time. So sorry, we need to, everyone please introduce yourselves, where to find you. We can stick around for a couple minutes, but we also want to be respectful of the following panel and panelists' time. So Raheem, who are you? Where can we find you?
Hey, I'm on Twitter at MegaRan. It looks like Meg Ryan when you look at it really quickly, but it's not. I hear that once a day. I thought that was, yeah, that's me.
I'm Samus. You can find me on all platforms at Samus Music, SAMMUS Music. Thanks so much.
I'm Tanya, Cyphertier, CYPHEROFTYR. That is me all over the internet.
Imperial Girl with 2 R's, no I. Oh gosh, I'm not gonna spell it. GRRL. But the first part's, yeah.
And I'm Triel Freshy, TRIELLFRESCHI, and you can mostly find me on Instagram and Twitch.
Oh, I totally forgot. I'm rapping tonight at 9 at the Mega Manathon, and then Raheem, when are you rapping?
Oh, I'm rapping at 10:30 main stage with a live band. See you there. Tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.